Welcome to Face Forward, the podcast, the series that takes you behind the scenes of the riveting world of clinical trial management. I am your host, Valerie Coveney, and I am thrilled to be your guide on this journey through the nuances of planning, executing, and navigating the clinical research landscape. Joining us today is a true trailblazer with more than 25 years of experience in the industry. We will be exploring the importance of prior indication experience in conducting clinical trials, focusing on three key aspects: site proficiency, protocol insight, focused monitoring. So whether you're a long-time listener or joining us for the first time, get ready to be inspired and informed. Let's extend our warmest welcome to Innovaderm's Chief Operating Officer, Cedric Burg. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
So let's get right into it, Cedric. So how does knowledge of specific indications impact the site selection process?
Well, first, I'd like to say that when you have specific indication experience, say in atopic dermatitis, that means you've already worked with a number of sites across the country or across the world. And therefore, to start with, you have a list of sites that you can immediately go to that you know have done good work before. The second aspect is even if you go to sites that are unknown in a new country, or you want to widen your knowledge, having that indication experience allows you to understand from public databases or from the information that you get from a site to have a feeling for who at the site is actually going to see the patient, where they're going to go right to the right person to get a proper assessment of whether the study can be done at that site. On the contrary, if you don't have any idea of what the indication is, you may get to the wrong doctor. So I always think of an experience in prostate cancer where you would find information on public databases of which sites had done clinical trials in prostate cancer. But what happened is people would call in and would talk to doctors to participate in clinical trials. But because they didn't know the indication, they didn't realize that early stage patients were seen by the urologist, while later stage patients were being seen by the oncologist. And so I've seen cases where an oncologist was a PI of a study, had never really told that he really didn't see those patients because he was kind of hoping they would be derived to him. And really all the patients at the same hospital came through somebody else and none could be included. So knowledge of the indication will allow you to avoid that in those cases.
Definitely. So I do understand that identifying sites suggests a deep understanding of both the sites and the indication involved. So how would you ensure that your team shares the same level of proficiency, especially when dealing with different indications?
There is really no secret to that. You need a strong, stable team that's been with you for a long time. And that means choosing the right people to start with, because some people like to jump indications and do 2 years in one area and then in another area, while other people really thrive on being able to accumulate knowledge and becoming experts in a specific field and having a knowledge that is similar or equal to the doctors in the field. So you want those people to come with you. You want to treat them well so that they will be stable at the company. And then you have this body and strong team of people with 5, 10, 12 years experience around you. Any newcomer is in the team will quickly gain a level of experience because he just needs to look across the desk or pick up the phone and call one of his colleagues to know about a specific assessment or about a specific disease, or about the coffee taking hours of the specific doctor that he's trying to reach and can't find, for example. When we're dealing with diverse indications within the same therapeutic area, we have relationships with investigators in, for example, atopic dermatitis. But those investigators will also see patients with psoriasis, for example. And therefore, it's quite easy to learn about new indications through the same doctors. So, an example outside of dermatology, where we're doing trials in neurology, in multiple sclerosis, and Parkinson's. But of course, those same doctors we worked with also saw migraine patients and also saw epilepsy patients, which allowed us to gain great knowledge in those indications long before the trial was started.
Okay, so transitioning here into protocol insight, Cedric, you mentioned Innovaderm's strong understanding of protocol and the impact of inclusion criteria on patient recruitment. How does this indication experience contribute to the protocol?
One thing that I find impressive in Innovaderm is whenever we have a new synopsis, a new proposal on one of the indication, we've done quite a few studies in, such as psoriasis or alopecia areata or atopic dermatitis. We have several people around the table, a couple of dermatologists, project managers, project directors, CTMs as well, that have done those studies, and they immediately are able to assess the inclusion criteria and the exclusion criteria, in particular the allowed or prohibited medications, to gauge the recruitment rate. And they immediately come together based on past experience and say, well, that's going to be one patient a month, that's going to be half a patient a month, that's going to be 3 patients a week in some cases, or that's going to be impossible to recruit in the US because this drug is widely used. We need to go to Germany, Poland, or somewhere else where that drug is not yet authorized, or even if authorized, is not yet reimbursed. That sort of thing gives us very strong predictability in how long the recruitment will take.
So moving on here to monitoring, our last point for today's episode. So Cedric, how does your knowledge of indication contribute to your ability to discern key aspects, and how do you translate these understandings into focused monitoring strategy?
Once you've done a number of trials in indication, or in the same therapeutic area, in dermatology, for example, you have very good understanding of where things can go wrong during the study. One example are diagnostic criteria. They're not always easy to understand or to document. So doing this early on and explaining to the CRAs what they can expect to find in a patient record to reflect those diagnostic criteria and which ones are valid and which ones are not is a good way to ensure that we have the right patients coming onto our trial. Some of the assessments can also be problematic, and teaching the CRAs and making sure they will focus on the fact that those assessments have been done properly. I'm thinking of tape strips, for example, in dermatology is an important factor that, if done improperly, will imperil the results of your trial. And so basically you go through these with the experience of the CRAs. I mean, they're the ones that are on there, as well as the CTMs who have spent years as CRAs, so they also have a good understanding of that. And all the prior experience, all the prior lessons learned that we have in dermatology from the previous trials, and you build a risk-based monitoring plan explaining what are the priorities of the CRAs when monitoring at site and what to look for.
Okay, so we can agree that monitoring is a pivotal aspect of clinical trials. Could you share with our audience specific examples where you guided your team in identifying and addressing potential risks during the monitoring process?
Yeah, so in dermatology, there's several aspects which are specific to what we do, and it's important to properly assess from the start. So I like to say that fire prevention is a lot less showy than firefighting, but a lot more efficient at preventing fires. So one of the things we use a lot in dermatology are rating scales to see the evolutions of the patient's lesions and their condition. It's important for people to be trained, and there's specific processes around rater training and rater experience, but in spite of those, especially either raters that have been doing this for so many years, they tend to be stuck in their same rut and maybe are not fully aware of how that rating has changed, or new raters that have just learned also tend to veer off track after a little bit of a while. So training the monitors into the scale themselves, showing them how scales are calculated, are assessed with the patient, and going through training themselves will help them identify that. Another aspect that is also important are either patient biopsies, or for example, tape strips in those patients. Biopsies are often obviously not very pleasant for the patients, and so unless the site understands the importance of the biopsy, and that's what the CRA's job is, to explain how important the biopsies are for the results of the trial, they may very well choose patients that are not willing to undergo biopsies, which obviously is the patient's rights to do. But that means the scientific value of the study would be much lower. So by focusing on those points from the start, you ensure a lot fewer problems and much better data in the end.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Cedric, for coming today. This brings an end to today's episode.
Thank you for having me.
As we conclude another illuminating episode of Face Forward, we find ourselves at the crossroads of science and progress. Remember that behind the jargon and statistics lie stories of unwavering commitment, meticulous observation, and the pursuit of evidence that shapes our understanding of health and disease. Stay at the forefront of knowledge and innovation, and follow Face Forward on your preferred platform. My name is Valerie Kovney. Thank you for joining us. Until next time.